Welcome to 2026. Today I'm extremely excited. We're going to be looking at some clips that break down why the mindset of goal setting today is broken. I'm extremely excited to bring you some of these key takeaways to set you up for your ideal 2026. Have you ever felt it? That something bigger is unfolding around you. That one connection that changed everything. I'm Greg Tomczyk, host of the Connected Mindset Live, and each week we bring you the stories of connection that create real change. Now let's dive into this week's episode.
One thing that's really important for people to balance out, and this is one thing I really appreciate about you, is we need to pay attention to the science and the studies and what they're saying, but you also have to, in your other hand, hold this balance of what does ancient wisdom say? I read a study about studies recently. Over 50% of studies that are put out are false. And there are a lot of reasons for that. One is the bias of pharmaceutical companies and them manipulating the study to get what they want. Another thing is people cherry picking data, only giving you the parts that you want to see. So that's definitely become a passion of mine, is teaching people what does the Bible say in some of these traditional forms of medicine, along with what does the science say. And I know we both love a combination of all those things.
I totally agree. What's interesting is if you look at where the science has led us, it was based largely on observation. Let me look at your eyes. Let me look at your tongue. Let me feel your body temperature. If something's been around for 5,000 years, it's probably because it works. Like, we've never done a peer-reviewed, randomized, placebo-controlled clinical trial on parachutes, but I would not jump out of an airplane without one.
The foundation of connection is ultimately figuring out what is best for you. We hear through social media, through the news, these breakthrough, new habits and new goals that you need to have in your life. But ultimately, if we can link back to the foundations of things that have existed for thousands of years, that's ultimately what they're talking about in this video. When you keep things simple, just like we do on the Connected Mindset, and if you like conversations like these two incredible gentlemen are having, each week on the Connected Mindset, we explore these exact topics of the things that you can implement that have already existed for thousands of years, and you don't need to recreate the wheel. That's ultimately where disconnection happens, and we want to see you be more connected.
Listen, longevity isn't luck. It's your daily habits casting votes for the future you want. As Aristotle said, you are what you repeatedly do. You become your habits. What are those habits you need to quit? And what are those habits you need to start implementing here so you can have your healthiest and best year ever? So here are your action steps. Take a 15-minute sun walk every day. Call someone instead of scrolling. Add 20 grams of protein to breakfast. Learn a new skill for 10 minutes a day, or simply learn by listening to a new podcast, a YouTube video, reading a book, doing something to grow. Go to bed 30 minutes earlier. Think about what is one or more of these habits you're going to implement so you can have your best year ever.
Look, at the end of the day, connection is intentionality. It's really ultimately putting things in place intentionally that are going to allow you to become the person that you want to become. It's not what you accomplish. There's a lot of goal setting going on in this time of the year, but ultimately we all want to become something. And that's what the doctor here is saying, that if you can put the habits in place that are going to set you up to become that person you want to become, everything else ultimately follows. And these habits are just the actions it takes to become that person that is ultimately going to allow you to accomplish all the goals that you have for 2026 and beyond.
You have been running in place and you're wondering why you're not getting anywhere. You can't just keep doing the same thing, even though it feels like effort, and even though it feels important, and even though it feels like you're busy. You can't keep doing that and expecting to get a different result than you're getting. You just can't. You have to do something that gets you a new result, that moves the needle.
If you're not getting the results that you want, you have to make a change. I think those changes are very uncomfortable. It's oftentimes those shifts where we go through phases where we feel disconnected from normality. And ultimately, that is what most of us are going through as we make transition. And as I've seen in my career and some of the things I've transitioned from, athletics, military family, new businesses, I've gone through the same things that you're currently going through or have been through or are going to go through. And ultimately, courage is the word that comes to mind. We talk a lot about connection, but ultimately it's having the courage to make the change that this individual is talking about. And once you make that change, you're going to be amazed at what happens in your life. That's what I want to see for you this year. Take that next step to ultimately make that next big change to get you where you want to go and to become the person that you want to become.
Who's been good about their resolution so far? Creed, I noticed you don't have a resolution on the board. What's yours?
I want to do a cartwheel, but real casual, like not make a big deal out of it. But I know everybody saw it. Just one stunning, gorgeous cartwheel.
How's it going?
I'm having a little trouble motivating.
One of the hardest parts about making resolutions is keeping them. In fact, most resolutions are abandoned by February.
Or sooner.
Yeah.
It's not a joke.
Our mindset around goal setting is broken and needs to be questioned. As we go into the new year, many of us are setting goals. You can hear through the office here that New Year's brings a lot of motivation, the cartwheel. The guy wants to just do one simple thing, and he's having trouble getting motivation to get there because he's making it ultimately about the outcome and not who he needs to become, his identity, who he needs to become as a person to actually do that cartwheel. I think that's an extremely important piece of it. We often set goals that ignore feedback loops. This group literally is giving each other a feedback loop on if their goals are up to speed with what everybody else expects and the expectations. Delayed fulfillment. A lot of these people are talking about eating vegetables, this year. He could literally walk out of that room and go eat vegetables. And he's probably not going to do it because he's not motivated to do it. Oftentimes these goals set false energy and excitement. You can hear the excitement. This is one of the first meetings of the year, the first week of the year in the office, in the workspace, and everybody's excited. Everybody has great energy. And that's how they're setting goals. But in reality, when you set goals in a connected way to yourself, that's going to allow you to go connect to others. It's ultimately identity driven. It's not based on the outcomes. It's based off of the principles. They are giving feedback over providing pressure to somebody. You hear when somebody gets pressure towards their goal, they oftentimes just collapse. And that can happen to you when you provide too much pressure for that outcome versus ultimately who you want to become at the end of the day. So some of the recommendations that I have implemented this year when it comes to goal setting to really change my mindset around goal setting is ultimately define who I need to operate as. Who does Greg need to operate as? Who do you need to operate as ultimately to achieve those objectives or goals that you have set? Designing a feedback system. Last year, we spoke about cybernetics. Ultimately, cybernetics is just getting feedback from your outside environment on everything you're doing in your life, asking the right questions. Does it look like, or does it feel like I'm stepping into a closer version of myself that I want to become? And that's a uncomfortable, sometimes a disconnected feeling to be able to ask that question, but that's going to help you better align with it. And then that daily alignment, the habits, not necessarily the overall outcomes and the destination and the results, are going to ultimately set you up to become the person that you need to become to accomplish all the things that you ultimately want to accomplish. Most people think that they're going to accomplish the thing and then become the person. And it's literally should be flipped upside down to become the person. And then that person will accomplish all of those great things that you've set out for in 2026. And that's what we want to see for you. Each week, we're going to put on the connected mindset to bring you those breakthroughs, those reframes to realign with the person that you need to become to ultimately achieve all the great goals and the ideal life that you want in 2026 and beyond. So be sure to tune into the Connected Mindset. We look forward to seeing you on and being able to hear the questions you have from all the great things you're learning as you become that ideal version of yourself. Hey, before you go, take a moment and ask yourself, what did this episode reconnect you to? Because growth doesn't come from information alone. It comes from the connections we choose to make next. Thank you for showing up for yourself, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Connected Mindset.